Good morning. Welcome to the last SMCC breakfast of the year, and it is going to be proving to be a very exciting one today. So we are actually extending our programming today till 10:15 because we have a nice little holiday surprise for folks at the end with a really great bonus panel. So our programming will end till 10:15, and then we'll have networking opportunities until 11. So before we get kicked off, quick introduction. My name is Nithya Ramachandran. I'm the president and CSO of T1. Really excited to be here with you today as your host and moderator to keep you awake, keep you alive. There might be some terrible dad jokes in here. I also made sure I wore my SMCC blazer because literally the only time I wear blazers in my day-to-day is to these events. So yes, appreciate the blazers in the room. So before we get kicked off here, let's just take a moment of reflection. And we want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And today, Toronto is home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, as well as those displaced by colonization. We also want to acknowledge the many folks of African descent whose ancestors were forcibly brought to these lands as part of the transatlantic slave trade, brought against their will and made to work on these lands. Their histories, their contributions are inseparably tied to the story of this land. Now, we always do land acknowledgements. We've all been to events with them. But the important part of a land acknowledgement is the reflection and the action that you take out of it. So for me, as a child of immigrants to Canada, I really recognize that my presence here is made possible by colonial systems that have displaced Indigenous people. And the acknowledgement reminds me not only of my privilege of living here, but my responsibility to honor, to learn from, and support Indigenous communities in their work towards sovereignty and justice. And like I said, it's also a starting point of action. So I also really encourage all of you to think about what are the actions that you can take in supporting Indigenous-led initiatives, whether that's land back, whether that's working through towards reconciliation through economic action, for example, or allyship. And I think, being members of the marketing industry, of the sponsorship industry, we all have a responsibility, either as a brand, a property, as agency, as we touch so many different communities and brands and people here about what that action and allyship can truly look like on a day-to-day basis. So I just encourage you all to think about that and reflect on that as we go through the day. Alrighty. Want to thank all of our foundational partners of SMCC. We got Canadian Tire, CIBC, FanDuel, Live Nation, MLSE, Nielsen, Rogers, Scotiabank, Wasserman, XMC, and YouGov, and of course, Real Sports and the SMC Education Committee, who've all contributed to preparing today's event. So let's give them a nice little round of applause first thing in the morning. We also want to thank our partners, our volunteer board and committees, because we're able to host events and initiatives like today. So thank you to those also joining for the very first time through our Plus One program. Are there any first-timers in the house? Get some hands up. Ooh, love to see it. Upstairs, people? Any first? Okay, we got some upstairs. Okay. And hello to the upstairs people. Do not forget it. Everybody wave. Wave to the upstairs people. Hello, welcome. We will remember you today as we are down here. So we're really excited to see some first-timers and some new faces, and we hope that you come back. So let's talk about today's event. We are talking about sponsorship evaluation, data and tools for industry professionals. So I definitely know the data nerds in the room, I know you're here, are very excited about this topic, looking at how we can really measure ROI, and some other people that are like, cool, what does ROI stand for? Please don't let me fall asleep. But really the point of today is to gain insight and takeaways, actionable takeaways, into something that we all know that is in demand on a day-to-day basis, right? We need to be able to measure our impact, measure how our investment is doing from a time, money, and resource perspective. So you're going to be hearing from a bunch of different speakers on different problems that we face in the industry, case studies, and again, actionable takeaways and insight on how you can tackle some of those problems. And I did mention we have a little bonus holiday present at the end, in that we have a bonus panel, which is a really cool exclusive opportunity here to hear from all of the leadership of the Northern Super League teams in advance of their inaugural season in 2025. So please make sure you stick around for that as well. So first up, we're going to do a quick market watch, and I'd love to introduce our host, Norm O'Reilly, Dr. Norm O'Reilly. Not only is Norm a sponsorship expert, but he's also a partner at T1. So hey, he's a buddy. He's been in the industry for about 20 years, and he has like the craziest flexes. Not only is he the co-founder and author of the Canadian Sponsorship Landscape Study, but he's led over 250 projects. Nike, Pepsi, Hockey Canada, you name it. He's also the Dean of the College of Business at the University of New England. He's written 20 books. Like, who does that? In his spare time, 20 books and over 170 peer-reviewed articles. So we're really excited to have his knowledge and expertise here today to talk to us and give us a little bit of a preview of what's going on in the market. So it's the morning. We need to give him some energy, so I need to hear a really loud round of applause for Norm.
Well, that was amazing. Thank you, Nithya, and good morning, everyone. I think this is, I don't know, maybe the 20th or 25th time I've had the chance to speak at a breakfast forum here, and I'm thrilled to be here. And I can tell you, this is probably one of the ones we're most excited about. So as Nithya mentioned, this is really a learning laboratory about sponsorship evaluation. And so she didn't mention this in my bio, but my PhD thesis was on sponsorship evaluation. So I'm a geek, I guess is what you could say at the end of the day. And this is a really challenging thing for all of us in the field, as you all know. And so we've tried a couple of times over the years at the SMC and our education committee, and we haven't really done a great job. And so last year, we put this one on the agenda. Scott Lidbury, who's here, has led our team. We've had a great, amazing team that's put a lot of work into this. And we didn't just want to come here and say, yeah, we know, you got to evaluate, you got to measure, people care about it. I'm going to do that in the Market Watch in a second. But we want it to be a learning laboratory where you're going to walk away with things you can do. And we're going to get deeper insights from ways we can look at evaluation. It's really hard to do. There's no silver bullet. There's no perfect way to do it. But we're going to try to get you some stuff today that's going to help solve this big problem. And so my job this morning in the next 8 minutes or so is to talk about setting the stage for that and why we're doing it, why sponsorship evaluation and measurement is important. So when we're talking about valuation and evaluation, valuation is something we're looking at measuring, as you know. Evaluation is a sponsorship we've had, and we're looking back over time to seeing, did it work, did it achieve the objectives that we want to talk about. So that's what we're going to kind of do. I'm going to draw a little bit on the Canadian Sponsorship Landscape Study. One quick plug, we'll be back here in January for our annual review of the results. It's the 19th annual working on now, so hopefully you can put, I think it's January 22nd or maybe 29th on your calendar, and we'll go through it. But we're just going to steal a little bit of the results from there today to kind of set the stage. So this study, as a lot of you might know, has been around for 18 years, almost 19. It's not perfect data, but it's industry data that a lot of you share, and the industry shares around what's happening out there. And there's a lot of questions we ask around evaluations. I mean, there's activation, there's servicing, there's evaluation, are kind of the three tactical areas of sponsorship. So we're going to pull on a couple of those things just to set up the speakers in a little bit. So the first thing is, and a lot of you know this, and there's a kind of a conundrum where we continue to say this is what's keeping us up at night, this is the biggest problem we're facing, it's why we are concerned about our jobs or our boss not happy with something we chose. We get all of these kind of comments in these big open-ended questions around what keeps us up at night. And you can see both before the pandemic and since the pandemic, it is the number one thing that you, industry representatives from brands, properties, and agencies tell us is your biggest problem, right? Continues to be and is there. Yet we don't really spend as much money on it as we should, and we don't spend as much time on it as we should. And so we'll talk about that in a second. So this is some data of how much brands invest of the rights fees they get back in evaluating a sponsorship. So clearly there are margins of error and there's ambiguities in what's in contracts and what's not. But we've had over 5,000 responses from Canadian companies now over the last almost 20 years. We're confident in the trends that we see in this kind of data. Clearly during the pandemic, very interestingly, all the brands are like, hey, we need to evaluate everything, even though we know we spent $1 billion, $1 billion came out of the sponsorship industry in Canada in those 2 years, yet we evaluated a lot more. kind of strange. So this interesting dynamic goes on where it's what's bothering us, yet we don't spend very much. To give you an idea, those 2% numbers, we see numbers that are 10 times that for activation, and we see numbers that are 5 times that for servicing. So it's not the priority that it kind of should be. Now, some cool stuff. We dug in the last few years in the study around when we are evaluating, what do we do? So it's not an awareness or a know-how problem. You can see some of the things up there. When we're actually doing evaluation, we're sophisticated. We're using digital techniques. We're using agencies sometimes doing it in-house. So when we actually do it, we're doing it really well. And you're going to see some examples of that later today. So that was point number 1. Point number 2, I'm only making 3. So point number 2, and this has been pretty consistent over the study, brands, and a lot of you in the room are brands, properties and agencies have to be aware of this, are not as happy as we might like to think around sponsorship. So over the years, we've seen numbers on 5-point scales like 3.5, 3.7. Last year was 3.6. I'm a professor, as Nithya told you, so that's like a B-. If your kids come home with you a B-, I don't know about you, but I'm not very happy about that, right? It's okay. It's decent. It's good enough. It's not great. And who are we competing with in sponsorship, right? We're competing with advertising. We're competing with lowering your prices. There's lots of marketing options that organizations have. A B- is not going to cut it if we want to keep going, and we know it works. There's tons of academic studies that show sponsorship works really, really well. You all know that. So brands aren't as happy as we might like them to be. We just threw this one. This was a kind of a post-pandemic question. And just throw it out there because one of the things we learned in the studies around those years is people are quite still challenged with this hybrid in-person. Heck, we even are with these breakfast forums, right? How do you do this? Well, interestingly enough, brands told us that the highest ROI, we knew online would be lower, but we expected in-person. Hybrid was the top of the charts. So if we can find a way to really engage an activation concurrently, both online and in person, that's where they see the real value. The last one, and I only have one slide on the last one, then I will pass it back to Nithya and our learning laboratory, which I'm as excited about as watching as hopefully you are for the next hour or so, is we dug in a little bit, and you're not going to like this slide because it's just statistics, but the key point that's behind it is that we took the data that was looking at, okay, what do sponsors value when they find ROI? So in that question I showed, we have a bunch of follow-ups. So what do they see in it? Is it branded content, different things? And then where do they spend? Lo and behold, they're highly aligned. I mean, it's probably pretty intuitive, but just to remind us all going into this, when brands are thinking about where they spend their activation dollars, where they spend their rights fee dollars, it aligns very, very closely where they see their ROI, their sales, whatever their awareness, whatever kind of things they're trying to achieve. So keep those things in mind. It's bothering us. It's keeping up at night. We can do it pretty well when we want to. Our ROI is not as good as it may be satisfactory, yet that's how brands are spending their money. So that was my job this morning, was to set the table. So hopefully that's clear. And our experts are going to come up and give you 4 learning laboratories to go from there. So thank you very much.
Is it weird that I kind of wanted to high-five him, like, as you're walking? It's, like, such a long walk. It's, like, it works out well. Alrighty, so as Norm mentioned, we are going to be going through a few scenarios today. These are all of our wonderful presenters. I know that the coffee is still kicking in, but as we introduce all of these folks, want to make sure that you guys give them a lot of energy. You're not at home on Zoom. You're not on Microsoft Teams. These are real people. Give them some reactions. It'll help them as they talk about a difficult topic, and they're trying to keep you engaged as well. So let's talk about scenario number 1. A sponsorship property needs to sign a new sponsor. How do they leverage data to demonstrate success and secure a new partnership? This is not a murder podcast, but I don't know why this voice came out. We're going to do it. So our first 2 presenters are John Moulton and Katie McLaren from Participaction. I hate reading bios, so I love to give some fun facts about them. So John has been at Participaction for 9 years. He's the director of partnerships, and he leads revenue generation and sponsorship sponsor servicing. He really, fun fact one, he really likes to push his internal team, push boundaries, think differently, and really make sure they do things they don't want to do, so that they get this increase in impact. That was supposed to be a joke, guys. You need more coffee. We can do it. John's favorite part of his job is also, fun fact, he loves reviewing 20-page long form contracts and sending invoices. It gets him up in the morning. That's his coffee. Katie is the evaluation manager at Participation. She drives research. Thank you for the laughs, even if it was to each other. I appreciate you. She drives research. She drives evaluation initiatives. And she's really looking at the organizational impact and effectiveness. That is her day job. She's really passionate about leveraging data. So when I said we had some data geeks in the room, Katie is the poster child for it. Policy development, research, all of these big words. It's great. But she's also a big foodie. So when you guys are chatting with her after, share those foodie recommendations in Toronto, because she's all about it, and we can all have delicious lunches and dinners going forward. So again, I need some energy, and I want you guys to we're gonna have a competition of who can scream the loud or cheer the loudest for each speaker, okay? So let's hear the rating. Please welcome John and Katie.
All right, thank you very much, Nithya. It's an absolute pleasure to be here this morning. So leveraging data to secure sponsors and demonstrate impact. What does that actually mean? We're going to provide you with real-life examples, and I'll let Katie get things started.
Thanks, John. So quickly, we wanted to share a bit about Participation. So Participation is a Canadian nonprofit organization that's been helping people get active since 1971. Our mission is to help people move more where they live, learn, work, and play. And we do this through our public education campaigns, through our thought leadership pieces, and various programs to help encourage physical activity. And we quickly wanted to chat about how our organization looks at measurement and evaluation and sponsorship. So for measurement and evaluation, everything we do at our organization is backed by science and evidence-based. We've worked really hard to have a strong internal capacity for measurement and evaluation, and we've done this through having an organizational level evaluation framework, having evaluation plans for every initiative to measure their impact, in-house expertise, and relevant data collection tools like third-party surveys, where we work with third-party external evaluators to be able to run these general population-level surveys. And all of this really helps us collect a lot of data so that we can assess the impact, the reach, and the effectiveness of our programs.
So now how do we use what Katie just shared to help us with our sponsorship procurement? As a small nonprofit, we need to be very strategic and calculated with who we speak to and where we spend our time and energy. We can't talk to everybody, and we know that, so we need to be speaking with brands who are already investing in physical activity and sport. And they need to care. They need to be aligned with our vision, our mission, and our values in order for the partnership to work.
Great, so now jumping into our scenario, the Community Challenge is what we're going to use as our example of our sponsorship property. So the Community Challenge is our flagship program that was established in 2019. It is a national physical activity initiative that focuses on finding Canada's most active community, who are then awarded $100,000. So when we first started the program, we didn't have a corporate sponsor, but we knew that was something we'd want to pursue. So that made us think that we would have to be able to collect data in order to leverage that in future pitches and tell the story of the program. So to do this, we had an evaluation strategy where we thought about what key performance indicators and targets would we want to set, and how would we collect various data through different collection tools. So with getting all this data, we were then able to leverage it moving forward the next year for both government funders and potential sponsors to really pitch them on the impact our program has had and why signing on would be a benefit to their organization. And then on this slide, we just provided an example of some of the sponsorship metrics that we asked in our population level survey. So as you can see, we have asking about attitudes towards a specific company or brand if they decided to were associated with the Community Challenge. And you can see from the results, pretty positive, that 52% of individuals would agree that if there was a brand associated with the Community Challenge, they would regard it in higher standing. And 49% agreed that they'd be more likely to purchase the brand associated with the Community Challenge. So a really strong story to sell to future potential sponsors.
Thanks, Katie. So what does this all mean? With the 2020 version of the program being canceled, it afforded our team extra time to work with Saputo, and I stress that, work with them on finalizing a partnership. But what we had now was results from the first year of the program. We were able to leverage those results in the conversations to figure out what we wanted to do together. We knew that they wanted to invest in something national and large scale, as a lot of their current partnerships were very regional. So what did we show them? We showed them that over 1,000 communities participated in the first year from coast to coast to coast, and that we generated 42% Gen Pop awareness of the initiative in just its first year. We also knew it was important for them to get funds to grassroots organizations, so we showed them that in the first year of the program, we distributed over $800,000 worth of prizing and grants to communities and community organizations. And we also knew that they wanted Canadians to know that they were doing this great work. They wanted Canadians to understand that they're investing in communities, especially those where they operate. So we shared many of the great earned media stories and the earned media results that we generated in that first year. Ultimately, that led to securing a 3-year partnership with Saputo for this program from 2021 through 2023. Moving into the fall of 2022, we had now started conversations with Sun Life about this same property. We now had 3 years of program data and 2 years of working with Saputo that we were able to leverage in those conversations. We knew that Sun Life's community investment team wanted to invest in programs that drive social impact, so we showed them that. Similarly to Saputo, we showed Sun Life that this program had now generated and distributed $2.4 million of grants and prize money to local community organizations. We also showed them that by doing this, 74% of the organizations that participated indicated there was an increased interest in their org and their programming as a result of participating in our community challenge. Those things are making a difference in communities. We also knew that any brand awareness or brand lift benefits for Sun Life would be very beneficial for them. So we showed them some of our results. We showed them that 49% of participants of the program were aware that Saputo was a sponsor, and each year on average we generated over 70 million earned and 70 million paid media impressions. So what did all that result in? That resulted in Sun Life coming on board as a second premier partner alongside Saputo for the 2023 challenge. We're almost done here. Finally, in late 2023, we entered into conversations with Novo Nordisk. We knew that they wanted to invest in a national flagship program that they could really own and take ownership of. We also knew that our partnerships with our other 2 sponsors were sunsetting, so the timing couldn't have been better. We now had 4 years of program data and several data points from Saputo and Sun Life that we were able to leverage in these conversations. We showed them aggregated results from over the 4 years of the program that we had now distributed $6.7 million worth of grants and prizing, and we had generated over 300 million earned media impressions over the course of the program. We also demonstrated the historical awareness and favorability increases that both Saputo and Sun Life saw throughout the years, with 71% of our 2023 participants being more favorable of both of those brands. All of this resulted in us securing Novo Nordisk as our new presenting sponsor for a 3-year term from 2024 to 2026. I'll turn it back over to Katie to wrap things up.
Thanks, John. So we threw a lot of information at you, so we just wanted to do a quick wrap up on what are the key takeaways and how you could apply this in your organization. So our first takeaway is measuring all of your initiatives. So while there's different capacity to evaluate a various initiative, thinking about how you're going to collect data and show the impact is really important, and thinking about building this into the beginning when first developing your program or initiative. Our second takeaway would be do your homework and know your audience. So of course, all sponsors are different. They're going to be more attracted to different things. So thinking about what metric will be most attractive to them and ensuring you're putting that at the forefront in any future pitches. And then finally, all program data should be considered sponsorship data. So of course, folks may think that sponsorship data may be specific to the sponsorship, if that's the awareness or the favorability, but really thinking about it more broadly, that all program data can tell the story of your product will be really attractive to sponsors going forward. So that's all from us. Thank you for listening. John and I will be happy to chat further afterwards if anyone has any questions.
Amazing. Listen, as the non-data nerd in the room, I just love that it's not just about the data, but it's also what's that narrative, right? What's that story, so that you're not only proving that value to your partners, but also using that story to get new partners as well. Okay, so let's go on to our next welcome back to our podcast. Let's go to our next scenario. Scenario 2, a brand has identified a challenge in connecting with next-gen consumers through their existing partnership portfolio. A spicy topic. Everybody loves to poop on the Gen Zers, so let's talk about what this looks like. So for this one, we're going to introduce Andrew Westbrook from Wasserman. So some fun facts about him. He's one of the longest standing team members at Wasserman. He's been there for 13 years, which in agency terms is about 1,013 years, as many of you can attest. He's worked on the brand side, the property consulting, XM. He's gone through all of the different parts of the agency. So he's telling me he's a very well-rounded individual. That is his fun fact. And he now is one of the brightest performance and insights consultants in Canada, looking at audience intelligence, consumer insights, and financial valuations. So excited to hear what he has to say about this. So again, we're going to have the audience thermometer going, so need to hear some big cheers and energy for Andrew.
That bio was written for me, not by myself. Anyway, good morning, everybody. It's great to see that measurement can bring out such a big crew. It has nothing to do with these 6 empty chairs next to us. But I'm excited to speak a little bit about how we leverage audience intelligence to inform our partnership decisions, as you're going to hear a lot about ROI and ROAs today. I think if you take anything away from today, it's that measurement has a role in every aspect of the partnership life cycle. So let's invest in measurement. But effectively driving sales and building brand requires a partnership strategy that engages consumers on an emotional level. It's the ability to create those connections that separates partnerships from your traditional product advertising, and why it's increasingly being leaned on as a critical part of the marketing mix. It's about reaching that consumer at the right time, at the right place, with the right message, a challenge that often feels magnified by audiences that on the surface feel very different. But that's because commonly we've defined audiences through traditional demographics: age, race, income, household. Those are easily definable, but ultimately you're just dividing along superficial lines. So this has necessitated a shift to dig deeper, to understand what makes our consumers unique, those behaviors, those motivations, those attitudes. Nailed it. So successful campaigns begin with an understanding of who you're trying to talk to. If you don't know who your audience is, how are you going to influence behavior? How are you going to drive sales? Our model isn't unique. It's just applied consistently across all clients and all asks. We start with the broad strokes. That's usually delivered from the client. That's the demographic, the psychographic, the baseline information around a consumer. We then use our tools to rebuild that portfolio and dig deeper through syndicated sources, proprietary sources, custom research when warranted, to better understand those shared behaviors, because that's what should be informing your partnership decisions. That's what informs creative strategy. That's the backbone for impactful experiential campaigns. So I said the scenario was to focus on partnership decisions and next-gen's audience, so we'll look at the partnership aspect of this. Personas define your audience, but partnerships are about creating those points of interception. For smaller brands, that can just be as simple as where should we be showing up. For larger brands, it's a little bit more an exercise in specificity and gradation. But regardless of scale, a consumer-centric approach will allow you to answer the questions we face each day as marketers. How do I optimize my investment? Do I have the right mix of assets to ensure that my brand shows up in the right way? What messaging will resonate with my target? So we talk about interception. So the best way to do this is the trusty Venn diagram. Imagine each of your target audiences being one of those circles on screen. There's obviously going to be times when you want to focus on one of those circles. That's fine. But our analysis typically is to uncover where that bullseye lays. That's that shared territory that unites your audiences. So by focusing on that area, we can ensure resonation with our growth audiences while not alienating our core consumer, right? This should be about both retention and recruitment. So how do we put that practice into place? You've done the research. You're sitting on a lot of data. That's great. Congratulations. But data isn't accessible, and it doesn't often inspire action. So what we do is we distill all that information into indices. For those who are familiar, it's really just a change in data points. It's the likelihood of an action or behavior to be found amongst one group compared to another, typically Gen Pop. Indices over 100, good, more likelihood. Indices under 100, less good. Also on screen, I'll just say the size of the audience. We are marketers. We don't want to be speaking to an audience of one. So a larger circle, bigger audience, more fertile territory for your brand message to show your product. What the quadrants help us to deliver is an immediate visual representation of the data that you're looking at. Circles on that lower left quadrant under index across your multiple audiences. That is traditionally not a great area to be playing in. What we're looking for is those areas that move up to the upper right of the quadrant that will align both with your growth and your target, your growth and your core consumers. So putting that into practice for a particular industry, we've leaned on sports and leisure sports here. It should be an area that's familiar with everyone, but honestly, this exercise works for everything. You're a brand looking for an ESG strategy. Let's look at the causes that your consumers care about. You're a spirit brand looking for how to show up. Let's look at the drinking behaviors of your consumers to understand, should we be activating on premise, at retail, through packaging? This helps to inform the best way to connect with your consumer. What I've done on this screen is isolated the two rightmost quadrants. On the upper is your recruit and retain. Those would be the areas that align with both audiences. That shared relevance suggests a broader campaign, greater investment in a national scope, mass marketing through communications. You're driving sentiment through the inherent IP of those shared passions. On the bottom right, or I should just say the bottom of that screen, that's more tactical. That's singular relevance. What that typically suggests for a brand or a strategy is something a little bit more tactical in nature. Smaller investment directed into a local market or a smaller region. You're not really looking national at scale. And you're going to drive engagement more through on-the-ground activation than reliant on advertising or above-the-line communications as a whole. I don't see Scott waving me off just yet, but this is the last slide I got for you. So to conclude all this as it relates to partnership decisions, you should let the data drive, but not dictate your decisions. While audience intelligence is critical at the start of any decision, it does create blind spots. So how do you leverage this? One, define your North Star. You gotta have a strategy. The best audience intelligence can fall flat if you don't have a clear objective or clear goals dictating your decisions. Evaluate the fit of the opportunities that the passion mapping has uncovered. The exercise up to this state has been very quantitatively driven by design, but that doesn't answer all the questions. Passion mapping is helping you to narrow your focus. It's now up to you to evaluate the fit from more qualitative. Competitive white space, investment required to activate, seasonal, geographic relevance with the rest of your portfolio, you name it. It's your brand, it's your agency. Figure out the fit, and then finally activate. I think what Norm's recent landscape study showed is a very healthy rights to activation ratio, but that hasn't always been the case. You can lull yourself into a false sense of security through the acquisition of rights fees alone. Ensure you have the resources necessary to engage that consumer, and just sitting on IP is not enough. So that's how we make informed partnership decisions through audience intelligence in under 8 minutes. I hope I didn't overstay my welcome, and thank you for your time this morning.
Okay, amazing. So next up, we have actually, this is going to be a video situation. We're all about the multimedia presentation this morning. So scenario 3 on our podcast, a brand needs to demonstrate the ROI of their sponsorships in comparison to other marketing tactics. Spicy one. I feel like we've all been in this conversation. So to do this conversation, like I said, it's going to be a video. This is a really great conversation that Norm had with Jen Johnson, who is at ATB. She's been in this career for about 15 years, spanning all sides of this ecosystem, brands, agencies, properties. She leads a really talented team over at ATB, which is in Alberta. She's in Calgary, in case there's some real Toronto people in the room that don't know what ATB is. As an Alberta girl, I had to make sure I represented there. Jen, fun facts about her. She spends a lot of her time outdoors, skiing, golfing, biking, does a lot of DIY projects and landscape renovation projects with her husband. But what I really want you guys to give a big applause for is the reason that Jen is not actually joining us today is she's doing something beautiful and selfless in that she is donating a kidney to one of her friends today, and that's why she's not here. So even though she's not here, I want you guys to give her a big round of applause to send her all of the healing vibes, and welcome Jen.
This is a really, we think, unique opportunity to share real sponsorship evaluation information. So I personally, during my PhD studies and afterwards, had the privilege of working with ATB Financial, help support a lot of that research. And this is published in a leading journal, so you can see the data out there. And what we looked at was a very specific ATB, significant, high six-figure deal that over multiple years, that the ATB Financial was really interested in seeing if they wanted to renew or not. In that process, we really focused into the various objectives, an ROO perspective, if you will, that really looks at the process of evaluating a sponsorship. 21 different objectives evaluated, some of those from the contract, we call those formal, some of those informal. So the marketing plans of each side, of the parties involved, things that wanted to be achieved. We all know the activation ratio. So ATB spent a good amount of money, a 1.7 to 1 ratio, well above the average and what we like to see. Surveys across the province, really tracking of financial data of top customers, surveys of the hospitality suites and employees. 8 different methodologies led to data that informed this. And so what we're going to do over the next little while is talk about a few of those results specifically and get Jen's input on them. So we're going to start with our first one. And so there's more if you ever want to look into it, but we looked into customer acquisition. This was a big sponsorship across the province. And in Edmonton, 7 new customers were earned through this sponsorship, 34 throughout the province, and none in the city of Calgary. So Jen, we'd love your comments on this evaluation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Norm. So I'm here to share that, right now we're moving a little bit away from, the hard targets, the hard customer acquisition metrics that we would collect through an on-site experiential activation or through a sponsorship. And really, right now, ATB is more interested in using our events to add value to attendees' experiences on site. And then also creating a way to have that become a starting point in their customer journey with us. So, an interesting stat that our team is working a lot around is that 20% of loyalty in the banking sector is due to the quality of a product or service, which means that 80% that's remaining that kind of steers loyalty, we think that brand and experience play a really inflated role in that. And so rather than focus, our team's efforts in being able to acquire customers on site, being able to sign them up for credit cards or sign them up for checking account, our activation strategy is really first and foremost to try and elevate their experience on site. And so the image that you see here is a recent activation we did as the presenting sponsor of the Calgary Folk Music Festival. It happens every July on Princess Island Park in downtown Calgary. And ATB's had a long-term relationship with Calgary Folk Music Festival. I think we've gone into maybe our 6th year as presenting sponsor. And so this is our on-site activation. We have a completely customized VENS machine, and we call it our VENS with benefits. And this activation kind of allows us a couple different opportunities. So one, first of all, we get to stick a lot of prizes in there that represent many ATB clients that bank with us that are also very well known in kind of the Alberta market. So we're talking about Monogram Coffee, we're talking Rocky Mountain Soap Co., we're talking Milk Jar Candles. And so we'd love to be able to give, the people on site access to some of these goodies from our clients, and help Albertans think and shop local. But through the process, we're generating leads through Castle consenting emails that come through as part of the process for people to access VENS. And that allows us post-event, post-activation, to really start designing and curating some relevant content for those in attendance that might pique their interest around, some strategies around their financial goals or some expertise that we have to share, to move them forward on their financial journey, kind of wherever they are. So activations are much more about us adding value on site and then, moving the customer into a digital journey with us after the event's over.
Great. So if you think about, that's really good. So, I mean, you wouldn't look in exclusivity at, we got 41 new customers for a 6-figure budget. You would better off just off everyone $1,000 to open a new bank account, right? So that's a really good answer, that you look at all of these different outcomes. And I'm guessing that's why, when you evaluate things, you look at 21 different objectives and a variety of different things.
Yes, exactly. You got it.
Great. All right, our second one, and as Jen just mentioned, brand is really, really important in that long-term journey that she talked about. Well, they'll just talk about it, they put their money where their mouth is. And you can see a variety of metrics there, both from a very exhaustive Albertan-wide significant sample survey, and also for a survey of existing banking customers. So they wanted to know, did this sponsorship really help build awareness of our bank, build the awareness that we care, and really to establish ATB Financial as a major player in the market, and as not a rural bank, its history, but as really an urban bank that can compete with the big five in Canada. And as you can see there, really, really good results on the branding side. A lot of shifts both in the general population, also in their customer base. Jen, would like to comment on this type of evaluation.
Yeah, so I'm sure it's no surprise to many people in the room that sponsorships are a really powerful way for you to influence perceptions about your brand. And I recently read another study that said that brand now accounts for 32% of a company's value. And so brand is really any interaction that someone has. Could be an opinion, a perspective, an experience, a feeling, an attitude, an attribute, a benefit, anything that they have with ATB Financial. And so because our bank is out in the community so much, we are supporting a number of different events that help us connect with a number of different target audiences. We really position our brand and marketing objectives front and center to create that emotional connection with target audiences. We want them walking away from events like this, which is a recent Calgary Economic Outlook put on by Calgary Economic Development. Our chief economist, Mark Parsons, speaks at this event every year. And we want people walking away feeling more informed, feeling confident, feeling understood, feeling like they have a little bit of a hand up, understanding what megatrends might be impacting their day-to-day lives in Calgary. And so brand equity, the value that, as I said, the value that people give to a brand through all their different perceptions and experiences. This is one of our pinnacle metrics that we look at. And so when we have the opportunity to reach a lot of these different target audiences through a key sponsorship, we really want to take that omni-channel approach where we can have an experiential activation on site, we can have digital channels engaged, we can have creative messaging and branding flow through. Really, it's to extend our brand's relevance kind of after this event is complete.
Wonderful. Brand, really, really important. Thank you.
Yep.
The third one, and this was one that really is specific to your sector, right? The financial sector. And I learned a lot doing this process from our friends at ATB that the high-end customers are essential, and all of the financial institutions are always competing for people with lots of money, because then they give money they can use for mortgages that the rest of us then use. And so as part of this sponsorship, there was a very specific VIP activation that included celebrities, included a large expense in investment in those particular attendees. And 26 VIP prospects and clients were tracked in terms of their banking patterns, a massive increase in their investment with ATB. They're moving money from their other banks in, as a result of the sponsorship. So we did learn a little bit, one of the service challenges, that not all of the seats in the VIP area were taken by the targets that they would have liked, but for those that did, very, very successful in terms of generating that objective. So Jen, if you'd like to comment on this one, very interesting one.
Yeah, so really, I mean, hosting VIPs is a really great benefit that I'm sure the majority of people in the room are negotiating into their sponsorship opportunities. Providing that behind the scenes access, those money can't buy experiences, that's really important for us as well. We want to be designing environments that deepen relationships we have with key clients. That's what we're looking for from a hosting experience, providing them something different that kind of shows that we care about them, we care about the relationship. We want to provide them something that they just can't get anywhere else. So knowing our clients inside and out, so we can source and design those hosting experiences that help drive a deepened relationship with our brand and our team members, that's memorable, it's passionate, it's proactive in terms of anticipating like anything that they might need in that environment. And the image that you see here is, one of our funnest days of the year. It's our ATB Classic Pro-Am. We get to invite a lot of top clients out. They get a chance to golf with an up-and-coming pro on the PGA Tour Canada. They could be from anywhere around the world. But we took a neat activation here where we interviewed the group on their final hole on the 18th green, made them feel a little bit like celebrities. They get to see their faces up on the big screen, and then we packaged up that video and sent it to them following the event. So really an opportunity to just showcase the partnership and drive trust and connection between, our top value clients and the team members that work on their portfolios day in and day out.
And how cool is it that you get to interact with VIPs like that and that kind of environment with celebrities, and it works, right?
Yeah.
Their money, they'll then flow into the bank that you can use to further your business. So it's a double home run, right? You get to have this experience with celebrities, VIPs happy, and there's a business return. So our last one that we're going to talk about is a bit of a negative one, but also tells a really interesting story. And so in this particular sponsorship, we learned after the fact that another deal had kind of been signed with a competing bank in Alberta, Capital City Savings. And so you probably gathered that this was an auto race. And so they had sponsored the pit row. And so in the province-wide surveys, huge sample, 3.6% of Albertans believe the Capital City Savings was in fact the title sponsor. Their sponsorship was less than 10% of what ATB Financial spent. So a huge negative for both the property and for the brand, and really showcases the importance of exclusivity. So Jen, we'd love you to dig into this one.
Yeah, and all the experiences that I've had on the brand side, on the property side, on the agency side, there's nothing worse than getting that phone call or having to give that phone call. If you're on the brand side and you kind of expected that your partner was going to protect that space from competitors and you are surprised by something on site, that's really tough to make that phone call. And same thing on the property side. If something happened and someone didn't know, then you're having to make a really tough phone call to your partner. So I think now still exclusivity is king in sponsorship. This is a clutter-free space, a protected environment.
So that's our 4 examples. There were 21, but that's 4 examples, and hopefully really gives you a clear idea of why you want an evaluation point specific to each objective you had. You saw Jen could respond, their future evaluations can build on it, and they can decide whether to renew, what to change, all those kind of pieces. So Jen, I know you couldn't join us live today, but it's wonderful you could join us for Alberta, and maybe you can just send us off with a few comments about what you think about evaluation of sponsorships in the future at ATB Financial. And thank you again.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm sure that I would have known a couple of you in the room, and just know that I'm thinking of my friends down in Toronto and seeing all the great things that are happening over social media and LinkedIn. And it's awesome to be a part of this industry in the country. Yeah, I mean, I think coming out of COVID, as I'm sure a lot of people do in the room, that there's never been a stronger desire for people to connect. We're hearing about this kind of loneliness trend that's happening where people are just not feeling very connected to their communities. And, I think that that's even more impetus for all of us to go out there and just continue to bring really great experiences to life.
I mean, it ended on a very poignant note, so that worked out, right? Love what Jen was talking about there, that it's not just around this concept of ROI, but really your return on objectives, knowing that they have 21 objectives that they're very carefully mapping against. Really also love that Jen was talking about the role of sponsorship and partnership when we think about the full customer journey and how that could really come to life, and talking about loyalty and things like that. So also important about what that data, narrative, and story is along each one of those points along the customer journey. So it was great to hear. Alrighty, let's go into our last and final scenario. A brand with concerns around budget and resources needs to evaluate the impact of a partnership and has approached its agency partner for support. I feel like every agency person in this room is having PTSD based on reading this scenario. So we're going to hear straight from an agency's mouth on this. Andrew Bell from XMC. Fun facts around him. He's originally from the UK. You're going to hear a lovely accent. He's been in Canada for more than a decade, but this is like a really interesting side hustle that Andrew has. He actually has a very unique, like I said, side gig in sports anti-doping. So he's looked at event delivery, sponsorship, sales, media creative, partnership strategy, measurement, and evaluation, but definitely something to go into anti-doping when you chat with him during the networking event. So again, we're gonna have the thermometer going, so I need you all, last scenario here, to give a huge round of applause for Andrew.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. I'm going to dive straight in. What I'm talking about today is an agency approach to a very familiar scenario to all in the room. And hopefully we can build some solutions together as a council and look to help those evaluation dollars go that little bit further. Power. There we go. We're activating and engaging with our consumers in 1,000 different ways, right? Sponsorships have become incredibly complex. They're supposed to be. It's our fault. We've made them so. We come up here and tell you to do so every month. This is no bad thing unless we're just not positioning ourselves to truly understand the impact of those spends, really know how our brands are impressing on consumers, what that ROI is bringing to you as a business, and truly really understand where those dollars are going. So it can be incredibly overwhelming to try and work out how to judge these things. It can be expensive, and so it's no wonder. Norm's talked to us about it. The proof of ROI is still keeping the industry up at night, 11 years in a row. And look, we get it. We come up here, we talk about spending more, doing more, getting those activation ratios up. So we as a council and as an industry also need to start to consider the solutions as to how we can really tackle this problem. And then hopefully in a year or two from now, Norm can come up and we can have a different thing keeping you up at night. And that would be really nice. That becomes our shared sort of collective objective, both as an industry and especially as a council, working together to provide those solutions and hopefully get you poor brand marketers sleeping better at night. This is a pretty straightforward formula, a clear value proposition, but we're not going to get to enjoying that greater expression of ROI until we can make better decisions about how we're evaluating it. And that really comes from leaning into the top end of what we're talking about here, which is getting much smarter in how we're evaluating and leaning into the concerns that our clients have around budget and resources. The good news is there's an absolute ton of data out there. We're never going to be short of data. We could spend all day long pulling spreadsheets, grabbing market research, lining our clients up with all the spots and dots and numbers that they could possibly dream of. You know, when we're dealing with a resource concerns, and especially when it's budget limitations, as an agency, we really feel that we can then position as conduit to that information, do the work for you, and help you understand that it's really not about measuring everything. It's about measuring what matters to you. And that really takes us into the first step. We want to look to understand how that partnership is impressing, how you're engaging, all the spots and dots, every possible space where you could extract value from a partnership, whether it be contract-based through your partners, your brand Marcom efforts, everything you're leading from your house, and then or a point of sale as well. So a whole ton of data to understand how you're actually connecting. Then we have to look to align with your business. That's really key, is understanding what matters to you as a business. What does success look like? How do you consider success to be expressed within your organization's walls? And ultimately, what's going to shift the needle to your business to help unlock those new budgets, help make those decisions to invest in a year 2, year 3, expand your partnerships, and allow the brand marketers and all of you that are managing those partnerships to do more, create amazing relationships with your clients, with your consumers. Importantly, we really need to know where your challenges are. What are the problem points? Obviously, in this case, it's around budgets and resource availability in-house. So that's something that we want to layer in. And ultimately, once we have all of that information, we're aligned with your business goals, we can then hone our focus, be much more efficient with our agency's hours, and ultimately deliver those solutions that are going to land back with you at a business with far more impact. One of the first things we can do, and we're fortunate in an agency position to be able to do this, is we can look internally. We have access to XM staff, BAs, account managers, creative, digital design, thought leaders in the industry. That really gives us an opportunity to think about what can we get that we don't need to go immediately out to external sources. We don't have to commit to incremental spend. We can also, if we're the agency that happens to have been activating this partnership for you, then fantastic, we'll have all that data in-house. But even if not, we can talk to the people that did. So your media buyers, your creative agencies, all of those, that collective resources that are going to give us a ton of useful data. We can also lean on our amazing industry partners. We have access to live market data, benchmarking reports, strategy. All of these are incoming information for us that we can consider to help put together an initial view of a partnership. And a brand that's going to be coming in the door with a challenge such as this is just going to be that much further down the road. We can build a really good base for an initial evaluation of the partnership. A little bit of a pinch of salt here, but ultimately what we're saying is that what we know is that brands need far more from evaluation. Budgets are tightening, partnerships are getting more complex. Executive teams are looking over marketers' shoulders. They want that proof of ROI. They want to continue to see value rising, those partnerships being more efficient over time. And the feedback that we're getting from clients is that the traditional way of reporting or evaluating a partnership long after the lights have gone out or the season has ended just really isn't giving them the ability to react, to make decisions, to pivot in real time. And that's really where we want to get to with reporting. We need to help our clients position to make those decisions as quickly as possible, and we can only do that by elevating our reporting efforts and working together to do so. Where we want to get to, hopefully, is moving towards this more always-on approach to evaluation. No longer at the end of the season, but providing information at a time that really makes sense and, again, supports that impactful decision-making. It becomes a little bit more of a micro approach to evaluation. We may not be looking at the whole partnership at one time. It may just be diving into a specific program. Participation have given us a lot of amazing information about how you evaluate your programs as they run. That kind of information coming to us is going to be so valuable to our clients. And ultimately reporting, as I said, in as close to real time as possible. This kind of calls back to my earlier note about this being an industry solution that we can pull together. Agencies can work to as I said, be that conduit, make sure that our clients understand how the data is going to work for them, present it to them at the right times. Our brands can make decisions coming into our conversation with us make sure they know what they're looking for, and as we said earlier, maybe looking to invest that little bit more into evaluation. And then, as I noted, our properties can, hopefully, we understand that resources are tight at properties as well. We don't always have the opportunity to report as a season is being delivered, but the more data that we can get, the more support we can get from all three parties is only going to get us much closer to this always-on cycle that's going to deliver much more impact to our clients. If I really wanted to help you get some sleep, I would run through all of these data points and spots and dots and things and how we present to clients. But ultimately, what I want to say about this is that as part of that always-on approach, we can provide dashboards, reporting to clients in a much more efficient manner. We really, the goal of this is really to get down to the brass tacks of things as quickly as possible. We want to raise the clarity of the information and the data that we're delivering, ultimately improving its impact. We want to highlight key areas of focus and make recommendations for immediate action. And really, applying agency hours in a way that makes sense at a time that makes sense. So this could be a mid-season report giving you a chance to pivot. It could be a monthly media review, ultimately giving you the chance to review something quickly, make decisions, be confident in the decisions you're making, and make a change to the active season rather than waiting until applying those changes into the next one. It might not always be an opportunity to you when you first walk in the door, when we're dealing with an issue around budget, to be able to apply. Hopefully we can work with you to provide solutions there, but we are always going to speak to you about it. And Norm's earlier Market Watch talked about around about a 2% investment in evaluation as it stands. We want to get that up. We recommend a 3 to 5% equivalency to your rights fee into evaluation. As we said here, small investment, really big impact. Ultimately, the dollars that you're spending on evaluation are going to have a much bigger impact on ROI than any other dollar that you spend. You can put dollars into activations, into media, into marketing, and it's going to go a long way. But if we're not sort of understanding how those dollars are being applied and what they're doing for us, we still kind of are remaining in the dark here. So as you go into budget planning for year 2, for year 3, that 3 to 5%, that evaluation section of your budget really should start to be a part of your future. I'm going to wrap up, but ultimately, what I wanted to highlight here is that there are solutions that we can support you with. Have that conversation with your agency partners, with your property partners. Develop a plan for evaluation that's going to make sense for you. It's going to be specific for you. It's going to achieve your goals and give you the information you need. Consider that move towards that always-on approach. We don't want to just check in once, twice a season. We want to connect with our performances as often, as quickly as possible. And then consider that rising investment in activation. And ultimately, it's going to help you achieve all of those wonderful things that we've got ticks next to there. And we're going to find successes in the years to go. That is me. That is what I have to say this morning. Please do reach out if you have conversations or concerns around evaluation. You want to understand how we're going to help you tell a better story of your success. Reach out. We're always happy to have that talk with you. Thank you.
Amazing. Okay, so we did our 4 scenarios. So let's give a huge round of applause for everybody for coming and doing our learning lab. Amazing.